And now it's time to talk about starting a game company. And we have, I hope, Sanna with us on link on Zoom. There you
Yeah,
are.
I'm here.
You're here. We can
Hello.
hear you. That's great.
Hey.
I think we're going to start with a round of introductions. So maybe, Sanna, you want to start by introducing yourself.
Sure. Well, my name is Sanna, and I'm a part of a small, newly started, not quite there yet, like sending in the paperwork right now, game company that are working on our first commercial game named Alset, and we're a part of the incubator. Uh, and Per is actually our coach, so we yeah, very newly beginning game company here in Skövde.
Okay, thank you, Sanna. And we have two pairs up on stage as well. Maybe you want to introduce yourselves as well. Do you want to
Yeah,
start?
pair of pairs. Yeah. I'm Per Holmén Dahlin. I'm with the Game Incubator. I work as a business developer. So Sanna is one of the teams that I'm working with right now, along with several others teams. Today we have approximately 30 teams that we are working with in different stages within the Game Incubator. So that's my everyday work, along with a lot of administration as well, unfortunately. So.
Cool. So we have a very new company, one working with the incubation, and then we have
Me, Per.
another pair.
The second Per, which is called Per Fornander. Yeah, I'm starting. I have a game company called Carry Castle, together with my co-founder Robin Lynn Nilsson, and we have one employee as well, so we have 3 people. And we have been running this game company for about 3-4 years, and right now we're about to publish. We're about to release on Q1 2021. We're going to release Source of Madness, an action roguelite game. And yeah, and that's, I guess we are
Building
we
on
also have,
certain tech, right?
yeah, we have lots of machine learning stuff
Yeah.
in our game, and we also have a publisher, Thunderfall, that's helping us with this last year of the development.
That's really cool. And I actually have the honor of being kind of part of the panel as well. So I'm going to be the host and a panelist at the same time. We'll see how that works out. Because I started my company, Valiant Game Studio, 3 years ago now. So I've been solo. Before that, so I was a solo indie for about 2 years, doing some freelance work and some development, and was a teacher. And then for 3 years, I've run the company called Valiant Game Studio. So I will also share a bit of my experience with you on stage today. But so to you, Sanna, and to Per in particular, so what would you say are the biggest challenges they have faced when starting a company? You can, of course, chime in with what you've seen as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for any game company, and especially startups, is to get through the noise, like, because there's so much. So even if you make an awesome game, it's still going to be really, really hard to get out. And even if you make this like super awesome game, if you don't get it out and people don't see it because there's so much other things to see and play, you might also be like, it might also be mentally taxing for you as in your team. Even if you make that awesome game, you feel like, oh, it wasn't enough. I think that's challenging.
Yeah. What would you say, Sanna?
Well, I mean, yes, that's definitely an issue. There's a lot out there, and that's one of the things you definitely need to handle. Like, find what makes you special is a big part of starting your company. But one of the things we really found like challenging was just the size of it all. Because you think, oh yeah, we're gonna make a game, cool, and we're gonna be a game development company, and that's what we're gonna do. And then you find yourself being like, okay, but we also need to handle marketing, and we also need to do all these like legal stuff with economy and all the types of like papers you have never touched because you went into a creative like work for a reason. But then you find yourself, no, we need to learn how to handle this. Um, but the thing is also, I think we make a mountain out of a molehill a lot because it's like, for example, the legal papers which comes for starting a company in Sweden, just hearing the names of them makes you really like, oh shit, how am I gonna do this? But then you just look into it a tiny bit, or like, what are these papers actually? And you realize, oh, it's just an A4 of a little bit of text that we need to write. Okay, that wasn't a big task at all. But when you look at it from the beginning, it feels enormous and almost impossible. But then you start taking every task one by one, and you realize, okay, we can manage this. We can probably figure out how this is done. But the initial stress is big.
Yeah, I can only agree with you there. Like, it can feel a bit daunting. Like you said, especially like when you just want to be creative, you just want to make your games, and then you realize, oh, I have to actually run this company, and I mean, I would say it's not for everyone, but like if you are into it, like it's so rewarding as well. Like once you get it done, like once you see your company growing and like getting that traction, hopefully in time and so on, like it comes back double. So it's definitely a challenge, and like seeing like if you make that game that you're really proud of, and like and then just you don't get the like the attention that you were hoping for and so on. Like it is taxing. It's I think even more than if you're working on an already established company. You're so emotionally invested, so like it's so taxing all the time. But you just have to keep going. You have to keep doing all the things you need to do because you're running a company, and you have to make sure that like you still get some kind of income somehow. So you just have to keep surviving to make another game, basically. Yeah. I see the post-traumatic stress over here. But what would you say is the most important things to figure out before starting a game company?
Ooh, I think it's to be synced. Like usually, I think the best thing is to start a game company with other people, and with those co-founder, you really need to make sure that you have the same goal. And it might be a very loose goal, like we want to be happy and making games, or maybe you want to make I want to make the new Angry Birds game, or I want to make the new blah blah game. It might also like be very hard, but I think like just make sure that you're all invested in the same idea, because otherwise you're probably gonna fall apart and it's gonna be very tough.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true what Per is saying. I've seen that over the years, at least with, like sharing the same goals and the vision for the company. I mean, all of a sudden, as a coach and business developer in the incubator, I can be totally struck by someone just leaving, and why are you leaving? Yeah, I wanted to go to Japan. Okay, maybe you should have thought about that before. So you have to realize that starting a company is almost like getting married. If you're starting it with a team, and you have to be really together on what is the company going to do, and what is the end goal of it, sort of, if you're going for an exit, or if you're going to build a company that will be sustainable for a long time, and you're going to be the owner of it. So,
yeah, I can only agree with you there. Speaking from quite recent experience, like being aligned from the beginning with your co-founders, like what are your expectations? Like what kind of games do you want to make? What do you expect from your roles? And figuring that as early as possible, I think is very important. Like there's no worries if you end up like, okay, maybe you need to, I don't know, if you really feel like, okay, I have to go on this trip, or I have to leave this company, fine. I mean, but like if you can avoid getting into that situation where you have to like split founders or whatever it might be, like the sooner you can do that, the better, because like the company's going to be better for it. What do you think, Sanna? Do you have anything to chime in?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely really important to know that you can trust who you're working with. For us, we're 4 people, and we need to be able to put the type of administrative work on everyone. Because if one person is supposed to handle that on their own, they're gonna get stuck. It's not something you want to put on one person alone if there's a 4-man team. And if you don't have the trust to do that, it's gonna be really hard, because there's gonna be a lot of struggling, and there's gonna be probably a lot of frustration from the person who needs to do it all, doesn't get any help from anyone. So my recommendation is always to, like, before you go into the step of starting a company with someone, if it's one person or if it's several, to know that you can work together, like make game projects before, because otherwise it's gonna be really tough to know what happens when the actual work starts. People need to be invested, and you're gonna spend your time on this, so you need to know that other people also care enough to spend their time on it.
I mean, I've heard some founders talk about it, like your co-founders, you will basically marry for the time that like, and of course not all marriages last and all companies last, but still like you should go into it like thinking we're doing this together, like we are in this together, and
Yeah.
we should try to work on this relationship that we have as founders, and like try to make this baby that we're making together, this company, this game, as good as possible. Like I said, it doesn't always work out, but you should at least try. But Per, could you tell us a little bit more about the Game Incubator and what you do?
Yeah, what we do is, we basically help companies within the game sector starting up. And as you were mentioning before, traction is one of the largest obstacles, I would say. It's a huge problem. It's a huge challenge for all the companies, and that's why we also work in that way, that we today want them to early on verify that there's a viable market for the product. So we basically forced Sanna and the team to really go out there and be open with the product and try to gather as much as followers as possible. And if they get that, we put them into the business phase, where is more focus on building the company and helping out with the economy. For instance, we will not do the auditing for them, but we will try to help them understand, because in that early stage is usually not that much of a turnover. And I would also like to say that you don't have to worry about it, because when you need to worry about it, then you probably get some money, and then you might be hiring people. But we want them always to understand how does the economy in a company work, and if you're going for an investment, you probably need to understand what's in the head of the investors, and how do they think, and in the long run, how you're going to be exiting from the owner, or the investor going to exit from your company, or what's the deal with that? So basically, we're a help, and during that time, we provide the teams with offices, and on a daily, we're without COVID, we were on a daily basis present to be on a help, but now it's a little bit different. But I usually say, like, we're a hand to be holding, like a support, and we're also there to ask the hard questions. What if this happens, and what about this? So I'm skeptical in my personality, so I always ask those kind of questions.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So my company wasn't incubator here, of course, because I'm from Stockholm, so I was not an incubator. But still, like having someone like in your ringside, like partially on your side, but also asking the hard questions, like that they're not invested, like they still someone who sort of pushes you, like are you really thinking this through, like I think that's really important. And like also an incubator can have the role of like just like it can tell you what you don't know, like sometimes just you do actually know everything, because sometimes you might have kind of a control, like you have control of the situation, but you don't even know, because you don't know what you don't know. So like having someone who sees the full picture, has done this before, can be by your side, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and it's very important also to be safe as an incubatee, that you're not supposed to know everything, because that's impossible. That's impossible. And I guess that might be a huge problem for those coming into the incubator, thinking that they should know everything. That could be a disaster. If you can't answer the question, that's nothing wrong with that. It's just showing that you're humble and want to know more.
Yeah.
I would say.
Cool. But Per and Sanna, when and why did you decide to start companies of your own? Do you want to start, Per?
I can start. Well, my first job in the industry was as a tech artist in Redlinks, a Ubisoft studio in Finland. So I moved abroad, the first thing I did after studies, and worked there for 2 years. But then I realized that, well, some people really don't feel like it's a very big accomplishment to be part of a big engine to make a good game. But at the same time, when you're part of a bigger team, you don't get to make the choices, and you're just part of making the tool or making this shader or this thing, which is fun. But I realized that I really wanted to make games, and you don't make games if you're part of a really big team. That's my opinion. So I called Robin. I was 2015, late 2015 autumn, and we have worked. We were both graduates from Blekinge Tekniska Högskola, and we kind of knew that the other one worked really hard usually. So we had the trust there. And then I moved back to Sweden, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna start this company. And then 2016 mid, we started a company. And then 2017 we went full time and joined the incubator, which was really nice that it existed. I think it helped us. I'm not sure what we would have done otherwise. I think we just tried to pull through, but I think we matured so much by being in the incubator from a business sense. And I think as a experienced developer, you're very naive at the start. Like, I can make games, but I don't know business. And you're so obnoxiously like, I just want to make games, but I don't want to do business. And that hurts you so much at the start. And you don't understand how much it hurts you. And it's really, and eventually you will have to pay that back. And it will be paid back by mental anguish. It's going to be painful once you realize that you needed that business from the start.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a very common pitfall. They like, I just want to make games. Like, I just want to, But like, the thing about business is that's what will make you keep making games. If you're just like, I just want to make games, like, yeah, then you're gonna make one game, and then you're not gonna do that anymore because you will have to find a full-time job somewhere else. But if you dedicate the time to actually learn how to build a business, how to build a company, you are much likely to keep doing it in the long run. Sanna, so why did you want to start this company?
I think it was about 4 years ago. Me and my now husband, but then just boyfriend, had spent half a year in Stockholm as a part of our previous education, and we realized that we wanted to be a lot closer to the actual like development and decision making of making games, and we realized that joining another company that might take some time until we get to be in that position. And both of us had also dreamed about starting our own company. And then we also knew about Skövde and the incubator here. So we were like, yeah, you know what? We have some CSN, money for studying left from the state of Sweden, whatever. So we decided to move here, study different programs here at the university. And in the meantime, get in contact with the incubator so that when we felt like we had found our team and we felt like now we have the time to start it, we were gonna be ready for it. So that we joined the incubator in the beginning of this year, but we were in contact with you guys through different means up to that point for quite some time.
Yeah. Actually, I came home to Sanna and Adam and bought, what was that? A guitar, what do you say?
An amplifier, I think it was.
An amplifier.
Yeah.
So that was strange. And like a half a years later, we met again. And how did it going with the guitar lessons? So that was really fun.
Yeah. It was interesting because I think we told you like, oh, we're here to start a company. You're like, oh, I'm a part of the incubator, but I don't have a card right now, so we'll probably get in contact later. And we were like, cool.
Yeah. Awesome. I love those stories. Like just people jamming with, connecting over music and stuff like that as well. And I can probably share my story as well. So as I mentioned earlier, I worked at Paradox for about 3 years. But like I can get very restless when I start knowing something. When I worked at a job for a while, like I need something new. I need a new challenge. So I was like, I like narrative. I want to be a narrative designer. But realized that I didn't have a portfolio. And that meant I couldn't get a job as a narrative designer. So I went like, well, if you want something done, you have to do it yourself. So I quit my job and I started a company where I could, make narrative heavy games. which was crazy. But somehow I didn't end up on the streets. I don't know why still. Well, I had to take some freelance work and was a game designer for a game design teacher for a while, sort of make ends meet. And then I wanted to like go bigger, so that's why. So first I had a in Swedish enskild firma, so a sole proprietor company. Then I realized, oh, okay, I actually want to start an AB, a real company, and taking investments and actually join an incubator in Stockholm and so on. So to sort of like actually start looking at the business side of it, not just I want to make games, as I mentioned. Actually, take it seriously. Actually, looking at, how does marketing work? How does investment work? How do I approach a publisher? Taking that a little bit more seriously. And I'm still alive after 3 years. It's something most companies don't make it that far. So I don't know. Even though we haven't had a success yet, but we're still alive. So yeah, it's something. But okay, so Pat, what are the most common mistakes that you see companies make?
Oh, it's hard. Underestimating underestimating the job to get through the noise, but also to really to start the company and be able to put down that much work that might be needed. I mean, yeah, you can have an overnight success probably, but because that's the ones that you hear of, but it usually takes a lot of time. Nothing comes easy usually. So yeah, not realizing how much work you have to be putting down into their passion, which is positive, hopefully, that you enjoy it. But I would say that, and that you're not realizing the size of the market, how big it is, and how hard it is to really put your product in the front of your user. That's the hardest part, I think. And yeah.
So Per, what is something that you wish that you would have known before starting the company?
I think that, well, something I would have liked to know before I started a company is, I think, to understand the customer thing, like understanding that everyone, even the publisher, is a customer, and that you need to understand the customer's mindset, and if you want to sell your game or if you want to be published, they are your client or your customer, and I think most startups do not understand the people with money, the publisher or the investor. They don't understand it at all. Like they listen a lot to their coaches, and if you're in a game incubator, but it might not always be the right thing they hear from you, or maybe they listen to the wrong thing and they like, oh yeah, take this, and I want as little money as possible and that kind of stuff. So I think understanding your target audience, even if it's a publisher, if it's your main game audience, it's something that's like you say you need personas and such, but it's like there's so much like you need to understand people so much. It's like, and we want to make games, but you need to understand the people that will give you the money, both from the audience and like from the gamers and from the publisher, if you have a publisher. Yeah.
Sanna, is there something you wished you would have known earlier on this journey?
I mean, the incubator is really good with this information, but it's also like listening to it. But it's the same. It's like finding an audience and having those numbers to back your idea up. It probably is kind of tough if you have this really cool idea that you really like, but you find out after working on it for half a year that no one is going to buy it. There's too much competition or there's just no interest. And what the incubator, at least here, pushes a lot for is to try to see in what's called the verification phase, if you can verify your game idea. And in our case, we use social media for it a lot. And that gave us a lot of good feedback. We realized what people liked with our game. We also realized where it lacked and where we needed to work on it more. But it might have, like, just knowing that when you're going to start a company and when you're going to try to make a game that's going to sell, you need to put the effort into finding out if it's going to sell. You don't want to spend more time or too much time on something that you then might not be able to use for super much, except for maybe a portfolio. And yeah, if that happens to you, it's probably going to be mentally draining. We were lucky to have a good time with our social media, not because of me, but because of my husband, because he really like jives with the internet humor, and that worked out fine for us. But I mean, we might have been unlucky and not gotten out there with some like good tweets or good posts on Reddit. And in those cases, it's good to start early. It's good to be smart with how you do it. Try to be consistent and try to reuse material, because it's tough to produce material for good posts. And we still have things we need to learn about that. But in the beginning, I don't think we thought about, oh yeah, we're gonna do a lot of social media stuff. That was something we learned when we like entered the incubator. But to be ready for it and to be aware of it is probably kind of good, yes, at the start.
Yeah, I think you're touching on very important things here. Both the verification as early as possible, and like if your game doesn't resonate with people, maybe kill it early. And like that's something that we definitely could have done early with our game Pendulum Swing. Like I'm very proud of what we produced, but it didn't reach the audience that we were hoping for, and we should probably have seen that earlier. And like what you say also about like social media, and like it is such a big part of making games today. Like you have to reach your audience, and social media is a big part of that, and working with influencers or whichever path you might take. And like I can also speak from experience with that. Like we started doing that way too late, in my opinion, and we haven't found a voice really. So it's also something that we're still sort of figuring out. Like how do we find our message? How do we talk to people? And like how do we make people excited? So like if you can find out very early on in your game development process, like this is the language, this is the tone we're using. Like I don't know, either you're very memey, or like or maybe you find some other angle that that resonates with people on social media. You're gonna have such a much more easy process actually marketing your game and building a community around it. I think you're very much onto something there. But Per, what are some options money-wise when it comes to startup companies?
Yeah. Well, from our perspective, or
well, in general, like if you're starting a new company, what options are there when you want to raise money?
Oh yeah, I would say that for the companies that we work with, usually there's isn't much like soft loans or soft money. Because it's such a high risk, it's not always the games that we work with or the game companies. They usually don't have that high level of innovation, which is a criteria if you want to go for like different funds that are like not even loans, that like what's a stipendia sort of thing. Like grants, grants. So, but yeah, I mean, I'd say the last 2-3 years, there's a lot more money for investments in the game sector. A lot of Swedish companies, of course, has made a lot of money, and they need to be invested, as well as when it comes to publishers. There are, I would say, there are more eager to buy now than like 2, 3, 4 years ago. I would say there's very much more money in the ecosystem. I would say.
Definitely, I think it's been a big upswing. I think people in general understand games more. So like investors understand the games industry much more than just a few years ago. So there are more angels, for example, like the want to get in and like the want to be part of this journey. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So it's we're in a good place right now. So let's use that. Let's abuse the situation for as long as we can. But Perry, so you're working with Thunderful.
Yeah.
So how's your experience working with a publisher?
Well, well, I think Thunderful is kind of a new publisher. It's kind of like there's like I think there's an old generation of publishers and there's a new generation of publishers. I think the new generation has perhaps like they have still some learning to do to some things, but they have a lot better like customer relationship with you as if you're the customer, like the creator. They are a lot nice. Like Raw Fury is also a new. They are not new, but they are in the new age of publishing, you could say, and they are also very like all of his newer. There's like some older ones that are very nice as well, but I think there are a lot of old ones that are not as nice, perhaps. And let's go back to how it's to work with Thunderful.
Yeah, with a publisher in general. Like,
yeah.
would you recommend it?
I think that there are pros and cons. If you manage, I think you should have a publishing, either if you're done with the game and you want to publish it on another platform, that's when you want to have a publisher. If you just want to, just port this game to this platform and give us more money. Like, that's one way to use a publisher. I don't think one should use a publisher that, hey, we have spent our lives making this game, and now we need a publisher, and we don't need money. We don't need money, but we need someone that publishes it. I think this is easily to get scammed as a creator with that. Like they might even like just take the money, or if it does, and maybe they will not even try selling the game. There's some horror stories out there, but I think the way we did with Thunderfall is very nice. Is that we have worked on this game for 3 years now, like 2.5 years, and they are financing the last year here now. And I think if you can get a publishing deal where they finance a big part of the game production, that means you have stability and you can work on it in peace, and maybe you can have kids, so you can like have a decent wage and you can actually survive and live a normal life and not live the indie breadcrumbs life and like try to get all the little food from everywhere and like not spending any money. And it's like I know so many startups that even when they have funding, like from startups funding, like they're still like living like they're like have no money because it's still tight with the money.
Yeah, but I think it's important like to ask for the money that you need. Like if you're looking for an investor, for example, like if you're working with someone who is, investor, has done it before, they will know that you need money to survive. Like we talked, me and Dylan talked earlier, I think, about this. But like you need to, don't do the like breadcrumbs thing. Like once you start, talking about budgets and so on with a publisher or an investor, like, don't ask for too little, because there are also some publishers and some investors that have a lower threshold. So like, don't be scared to, ask for what you actually need, because you might end up too low otherwise even. So like, depending on who you're talking to. And I think it's also important to know that it's a partnership.
Yeah. I have one thing about that is that I think one mistake that a lot of indie companies do, and I have some friends that do this, and they still want to do it that way, but they had this like small project like this, like 1 year. And they're like, we worked half a year, so now we only have half a year left to complete the game. And maybe it's an awesome game, but it's too small to finance. So it's like usually either they ask for too little money or too much money. You need, as I said before, you need to understand the customer, which is the publisher in this case, and you need to understand what you need to talk to the other creators that have worked with this publisher and ask what are their budgets, and then you need to understand like you could technically scope up the game to fit that budget. And that's something I think people don't understand, and that hurts you, because then they will take you as not serious sometimes. If you have a super awesome game, maybe they will take you anyway. But usually they will not publish you if you have too small of a game, because it's not worth their time to spend all the management stuff around you.
Yeah, they have an overhead. Like they have to have a certain amount of people working on your game. So it's a partnership. So like look into who you're pitching to. Like what kind of games do they publish and stuff like that. So we are running out of time, but I want to just have a final question. And so Sanna, when will we be able to play your game?
The current plan is that it will be released in the spring of 2022.
Cool. Looking forward.
But that depends a bit on how it goes with publishing deals and how much of full time we can put into it, because we're in that time when we're looking for publishers and funding. So always a bit unsure about the future situation here. But yeah, if we look at our budget right now, it's spring 2022.
Cool. Looking forward to it. And is Source of Madness playable? Can we play it right now? Or are you
We
working
had
on
a
it?
demo through the Steam Festival, and you can also join on sourceofmadness.com. You can also join our Discord, where we'll have waves of alpha invites, where you can play more of the game once we open the floodgates again. And when you can play the actual full experience of the game is early Q1 2021. So in this early spring is when we will release the game.
Cool. Exciting. All right, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much, Per, and Sanna. We will, well, a little bit of round of applause, right, from the audience here. Thank you.